This week, the Democrats hold their presidential nominating convention in Chicago, but what's going on outside their convention is getting just as much attention. Another group of medical professionals sounding off in opposition to sex change surgeries for minors. And another week, another battle over books in children's school libraries. These stories and plenty more on deck this week on The Lion Week in Review. Welcome into this week's edition of The Lion Week in Review. It's a weekly look at the culture, the courts, your state capitol, and your kids. I'm Chris Stigall. Now let's meet our panel. Some of the men and women behind the stories at readlion.com. Josh Mann, our managing editor. Michael Ryan, executive editor. And Valerie Cabana, media contributor here at The Lion. Welcome, panel.
Thank you.
This week, the Democrats are in Chicago having their convention, and Valerie, outside is a mobile abortion van and mobile vasectomy van or something like that. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so pretty much Planned Parenthood has set up camp, and people can go and they can have free abortions and free vasectomies, and it's evil. I mean, why are we glorifying this topic? But I just want to kind of take it from an approach of people are like, no, you guys are trying to control women's bodies by not wanting abortion, by making it illegal. But I'm here to tell you that no one is trying to control women's bodies, okay? This is a sanctity of life thing, and it is the difference between death and life. And the moment that a baby is conceived, everything genetically about that child is determined. So that moment, the color of their eyes are determined. How many strands of hair they're going to have on their head is determined. Their height as an adult, it's already determined. And to say, oh, that's a fetus, that's really where we like to push it off. Look up the definition of fetus, number one. Number two, let's bring back the sanctity of life. I know so many people say, well, you shouldn't force someone to have a baby that they don't want. And the truth is, well, as Christians, we believe that that baby is a baby and that God has a purpose for them. And maybe instead of throwing all of this money to illegal immigrants that are here in the country that shouldn't be here at all, we could throw some more money into the adoption system or to mothers who might not feel like they have another option and they need to abort their baby so that they can survive. That's really not fair. And the fact that our government is taking care of other people instead of a people that is hurting in our own country, that's tragic, and we have to do something about it.
Michael, it's been not too terribly long ago that the Democrats, led by Mrs. Clinton and her husband, President Clinton, talked about abortion in terms of safe, legal, and rare. This week, there are women bragging about popping the Plan B and heading to the convention floor. We've come a long way in a short time.
Yeah, this is not safe and rare, is it? It's the mobile abortion and vasectomy vans. It's just like the new ice cream man, who's offering something other than sweets. It's just really a very dim view of life that we're seeing at the DNC. And there is a culture clash between life and death. There really is in this country. On the one hand, you've got people who are well-meaning, I'm sure, who say that we've got to actually reduce the population to save the planet. On the other hand, you've got people who are concerned and think there's a crisis about the declining birth rate in Western civilization. Conservatives, I think, at bottom, believe that the highest and best purpose of humanity is to prepare the next generation, not prevent it.
Josh, man, this brings me to another story you guys have at readlion.com, and that's on J.D. Vance, the other side of the aisle, who has been criticized for what has been his criticism of the Democrats, what he calls anti-family stance. It seems like they're making his case this week, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing on display really a contrast between party platforms. I mean, the Democrats are pushing this kind of notion that, well, children are very much optional, if not an inconvenience, whereas the other party is saying, no, we want to celebrate children. This is, and in fact, the institution of the family is important for the thriving of our country. I certainly believe that, but I think there's even a lot of Democrats who are pro-family. If you just talk to them, these would be regular folks on the street. I wonder really how many sort of middle-of-the-road Americans believe in the kind of thing that we're seeing in this bus that basically says, what one critic called a kill your baby here bus. I mean, that's kind of an extreme way to put it, but it is a very, you certainly can't say it's pro-family. And I think children, J.D. Vance, he said that he calls the Republicans the party of parents and kids, and he says that an anti-child ideology exists in this country, and I think he's right, and he's right to put his finger on it in spite of the criticism.
While we're on you, Josh, I wanted to talk to you about something else that's going on at not just the Lion, but the entire Herzog ecosystem celebrates in September the annual Christian Teacher of the Year Awards. You guys have been profiling some of them.
Yeah, we've profiled 4 so far, and I would encourage the audience to be watching for more on these incredible teachers that are doing amazing work all around the country in Christian schools. This week we published on a gal named Jamie Reese, who's down in southeast Missouri, and one of the great things that she did with some of her high school students is she introduced them to older folks at their local convalescent center. It was kind of a slow process. She had tried it once, and the kids, kind of didn't warm up very quickly. It smelled funny. It was hard to start these relationships and get to know some of the older folks in the community who were there. And so she went back to the drawing board and really designed a program where what she calls a grand buddy system. And so the students would pair off and have an elderly person that they would be grand buddies with, get to know them, and it turned into this beautiful multi-generational relationship that I think actually would benefit teens all over the country.
These are impressive people. Every year we do this, the annual Christian Teachers of the Year, and I hope, if you have the chance, check out the profiles that the good people at the Lion are writing on these folks, because they are really special people. And we're actually going to be at a reception honoring all of them in September in Washington, D.C. That's going to be a lot of fun. Michael, let's turn to another story of another school board member who I guess this time has gotten clever with social media to battle back against critics.
Yeah, this is a battle of, decency versus indecency in books in school libraries. And of all places, a very wholesome Kansas school district, single mother of two, Carrie Schmidt, has for a couple years now been basically doing the school district's job of policing porn in the school libraries. And there was recently a viral video of her addressing her school board, and in it, 2 of the male members of the board were probably not as respectful toward her and what she's doing as they should have been. And the thing is, at least one of the 2 agree with her on the books. It's really sad when you see 2, I've had exchanges with Ms. Schmidt and one of the board members involved, and they're both good people, and it's really sad to see when good people doing important work get crossways with each other. This is important work, because this is a battle for the minds and the souls of our children, and this is something that needs to go on. And again, as I say, I've had exchanges with both of them. I do feel that eventually they'll be able to smooth it over and continue the battle.
I really sincerely wonder, and there's not a right or wrong answer to this, I'll just ask the panel generally, broadly. As we talk about these individuals who infest school districts and school boards with this persistent message of we got to let these books, this graphic stuff into our libraries, they fight hard for it. And I guess I just asked the panel, your opinion, what motivates it, really? I mean, what's in the head of people who think today these books are important to be in young children's libraries, Valerie?
I've got no idea. I love Junie B. Jones. Bring it back. I read every single one of them. There's like so many. What in the world is going on? Why can't, like I've mentioned this over and over and over again, why can't we focus on the core subjects that need to be taught in schools and remove things that are inappropriate for children? It's absolutely ridiculous and should not even be a topic of discussion.
Is it as easy as it being sinister, Josh? Is it evil? Is it a genuinely held belief that kids need to know this graphic stuff? Or could you even begin to guess?
I think it's D, all of the above. I think there is a small group that they do have an agenda. They want to see books that promote non-binary gender ideology or non-traditional family arrangements. There are people that believe kids need to learn this and that it's important, and they do have an agenda, and they want to indoctrinate kids. They actually believe that they're doing the right thing. But I think there's also people, and especially a lot of librarians, who come at it more from a principled perspective of, anytime they smell or hear somebody say this could be a book ban, then they're going to oppose it. But when you really stop and you look at the content, I think even common sense would prevail here and say, no, these books are inappropriate for kids. It doesn't mean that the parent can't check them out at a public library for their kid, but maybe don't put it on the second shelf so that 4-year-olds can get a hold of it. And that's really what the battle's about. It's not about banning books. It's about restricting age restrictions like we do in tons of other areas of life and culture in this country.
Well, to your question, Chris, I think that there is a sinister agenda going on among some to groom kids into this ideology. And I think a lot of good people get caught up in it because of several reasons. Number one, there's just a blind allegiance to books. I mean, as an author, I like that, but there's a limit to that. I mean, there's a limit to what you should offer to kids. I mean, we don't do that with movies. I mean, we don't do that with, cigarettes and alcohol. We don't proffer that to kids. So I think a lot of people get caught up in this blind allegiance to the First Amendment and to books.
Although, if I may jump in on that,
Sure.
Not when it comes to classics like Huckleberry Finn. We've had that pulled from libraries because the N-word is written in it, Michael.
Yes, and Dr. Seuss was on the cancel block a few years ago as well, which is kind of silly. But, I think parents ultimately are really, they don't know what's going on. They're too busy, and I understand that as a father. But they don't know how sinister some of this stuff is, how pernicious it is, and how pervasive it is in our libraries today, public libraries and school libraries. And they're relying, I think, wrongly on librarians and school districts and administrators who are in some ways caught up in all this, but also, I think, in large measure, have decided to wash their hands of any responsibility whatsoever for what's in their libraries.
And I was at a friend's house not that long ago, actually, and her 7-year-old daughter had actually just come home from the book fair that day. And I saw the book that she brought home, and I was like, hold up. So I actually flipped to a page in the book, and I pointed directly to an image, and I said, hey, I think you should look at this. The mom saw it, instantly took the book away. She was like, this isn't a book that we can read. And like I said, she was 7, so it's inappropriate, and kudos to her mom for taking that book away.
Yeah, to Michael's point, I think there are still far too many people that are naive that the book fair doesn't have anything objectionable on display, and they do, I'm sorry to say. Final story of the program today, Michael. It sounds like some medical groups are turning sane in this transgender notion that minors in particular, if you're 18 and older, that's a different thing. But minors changing their gender as if that were a real thing. Now another group, I think in addition to a group of pediatricians, if memory serves, a week or two ago, have come out against this.
Yes, the American Association of Plastic Surgeons, and it's about time. My liberal friends think this is compassion, making these things available to children. But now some of the medical organizations are taking a second look at this, belatedly, I might say. And by the way, have you noticed your favorite aging actresses who have gone through plastic surgery? Have they really achieved newer, younger faces, or are plastic surgeons in many cases over-promising what they can deliver? They're certainly, and according to this association, over-promising what they can deliver with sex changes for children. They talk about, quote, low quality, low certainty in the procedures. Who would sign up for that? I mean, folks on the left especially have always said during the COVID, follow the science. Well, yeah, follow the science, not the politics.
Josh, it's kind of a Frankenstein's monster thing. I mean, I really do imagine being a plastic surgeon and being asked, all right, take this toddler and make him a girl. I think maybe a lot of these plastic surgeons have consciences and say, can't do it.
Yeah, and in this story, one of them spoke on that topic, and I was very impressed by this particular doctor who said, at the end of the day, they can't just take the word of a psychiatrist or somebody up the chain of medical care for this person and then just perform the operation. Because when you're taking away body parts, creating new ones, I mean, that's a huge responsibility. And I think some of these surgeons feel that. And so fortunately, they're not just in it for the money, at least not some of them, but there is big money in it. And so we have to continue to watch this, and hopefully more organizations are taking an objective look at the lack of evidence for long-term efficacy of these things. And certainly we're falling behind a lot of other Western countries in pumping the brakes on it. But it is good to see this group do it. And so, we're hopeful that, we can just give these kids some time. I mean, you remember middle school, right? Let's not get in a hurry and start signing up for surgery.
That's right. Who among us liked what they saw in the mirror when they were in middle school? It's a great point. Well, that's all for the news stories of the day. But before we close, we always like to ask our panel about their favorite stories of the week. And Valerie, we'll start with you at readline.com. Your favorite?
So my favorite is a school district right in our backyard from St. Joseph, Missouri. And we actually cover a school board president who left some really explicit comments on a Facebook post. The headline of this article quotes her saying, "Go bleep your mom and your dog." So I've actually laughed at this article so many times this week. Did I mention? I know I did. She's a school board president, and the post is about this long. So it's in our article. Make sure you go read it.
It's remarkable. The St. Joseph School Board has got to be like, it's like, I don't know, for people that remember the Jerry Springer show, it's like the Jerry Springer of school boards. Josh, your favorite story of the week?
Well, my favorite story is one that you just told me before the show about a local Christian school that had to move its convocation into a large church because there's so much growth. And actually, we're writing a lot of stories about schools like this where, I mean, the kindergartners are pouring in, families are looking at their educational options and saying, we want to make a change. And so it's just exciting to see the growth of options and parents kind of taking control and making these educational decisions for the kids.
Yeah, it was a real special morning to see not just my own daughter in the school, who's a high schooler, but to see the K through 5, the young kids, the kindergarten age kids. Their young parents are starting their kids in Christian education. It's exciting, and that's happening all over the country. Michael, your favorite story of the week?
Yeah, my favorite is a little further afield. It's Pakistan failed to prosecute suspects in anti-Christian rampage. It's a reminder that the persecution of Christians in this world today, even, is the untold story of our time.
And that'll do it. Thank you, panel, for this week's edition of the Lion Week in Review. These stories and so many more like them you can read each and every day and all week long at readlion.com. For all of us here at The Lion, thanks for downloading today's show, and we'll see you next time.